Serious, what is the scariest thing that you have ever encountered while home alone? I was house sitting for some family. They neglected to mention that their cat knows how to open doors. I learned this at 2 AM when the bedroom door flung open. Unrelated to Home Alone stories, but my roommate's dog knows how to open our back door. Worse than that, knows how to unlock our damn front door and open it and get out. Yeah. Luckily that door also has a chain lock, so we decided it always needed to be chained when the dog was inside. Reminded me of the scene from Jurassic Park when the raptor figured out how to open the door. Animals are smarter than we think. We lived in a maisonette in London. We lived upstairs and a man was downstairs. He came banging at our door one day screaming that his flat was being flooded from our bathroom and to let him in. Well, I was 14 and my bro 13. Mum was out. He came in, went into the bathroom and did something. I don't know what. He was an adult and we trusted him. Well, mum called the council out and there had never been a leak. No watermarks or anything, so mum told us not to let him in again. Next time mum went out he came banging at the door again and we told him what mum said. He went, "Apashit. Let me fucking IINN. Let me fucking IINN." All the while banging the fuck out of the door. God knows why he wanted in. Scary. Put a hidden camera in the bathroom. Had to fix it when it stopped working. Or retrieve the camera and or its memory card. A guy my dad used to work with got caught doing exactly this. How the hell does one hide a camera for any extent of time that it requires retrieving? How would he react if the camera/memory card is suddenly removed? It would be something like a pinhole/spy cam. If they are installed by someone who knows what they are doing, you'll never ever notice them unless you're employing countermeasures/actively sweeping for recording devices. The more readily available spy cameras online tend to be the sort that fill a standard microSD card, so Jude would need occasional access to switch card/switch in a new charge cam. I was taking a nap in my apartment under blankets in my bed when I hear the door open. Thinking it's my husband, I ignore it. But about 5 minutes later, I hear several female voices. I'm thinking I'm dreaming, so again, I ignore it. The voices get louder and suddenly my bedroom door opens. I freak out and bolt upright in bed. 3 women were in my apartment. 2 young, 1 older. I shriek. They shriek. They run out of my apartment. It turned out that the management company showed the wrong apartment available for rent that day. I got an apology and a bouquet of flowers. I lived in a house with some guys in college and was homesick with a cold. I was laid up in bed, half delirious from cold medicine, and watching YouTube on my phone when there was a knock on my door. Thinking it was one of my roommates, I said come in, and in walked my landlord and 4 random dudes. Because I was a bit delirious from the cold medicine, I immediately yelled, "Who are you people? What are you doing in our house?" The landlord's eyes went wide as saucers and he hurried the guys out of the room. Got a call later from him apologizing and saying he was showing the house to prospective renters and that one of my roommates had told him it was fine. My roommate probably told me, but again, I was so out of it from being sick and taking cold medicine that I completely forgot. I can relate. I once lived in a building where the realtor got a little too comfortable not informing me of showings and just letting himself in. My girlfriend and I were in the bedroom getting busy and I heard voices in the kitchen say, "Hi, we're here." My buddies were around using my laundry machine, so I just yelled, "Yay, so what? Busy in here." I then hear the realtor's voice say my name. We toss on clothes and open the bedroom door to a family of 3 staring back at us. Young me was just embarrassed. Now me would have been livid. No matter though, as we had some good laughs afterwards. Was in the shower when I heard the door to my apartment being unlocked. Husband wasn't due back for several hours. Turns out it was the skeevy ass building manager snooping around people's apartments when he thought they were not home. Reported him to the company that owned the building, but nothing ever came of it. Moved out shortly after. I had something similar happen to me. Was in the shower when I heard loud banging outside. Panicked. I shut off my shower and tried to figure out what to do. I wrapped myself in a robe and peeked out my bathroom door to see that my building superintendent had taken a hammer to the latch lock. Not sure what they're called. The type of lock where you flap it over from inside the apartment and completely ripped it off the wall to get in. When I asked him WTF he was doing, he claimed he had to change the air filters. They were supposed to text or call when they wanted to enter. Wasn't my first or last run-in with him. So scary when creeps have keys to your home. Yeah. I'm pretty sure most states require landlord/property managers to give at least 24 hours notice before they enter a unit. I was woken from a deep sleep by the most horrifying high-pitched howling noise. We live deep in a wooded area, and I was familiar with sounds like foxes barking or even fisher cats screaming, but this was eerie and didn't sound like an animal. Then it came from the other side of the house, but there was no sound of anything walking. You know how your mind isn't really logical when you first wake? I was convinced it was some terrible otherworldly creature. In the morning I checked some online recordings of sounds to figure it out. Turned out to be a tiny harmless screech owl. Little guy can make some demonic sounds though. First time I heard a fisher cat in my backyard at night I nearly shat myself. Those things sound like screaming human babies and just no. At the time I wasn't familiar with them, so I noped quickly back into the house. I didn't know what a fisher cat was until I was backpacking in Maine by myself. I was setting up camp alone by headlamp when the screeching started and I was freaking out and the sound kept moving. Frantically looking around with the little beam of light, trying to set up my hammock and tripping over myself. I sat up in my hammock holding my hiking poles like a weapon for an hour. Talking with another hiker the next day they told me what it was, which calmed me down because I was still all sketched out. The first night alone at my new house, a dude tried scouting around my home looking for a way in. I flipped on all the lights and ran downstairs as loudly as I could holding a plastic tomahawk in one hand and my phone dialing 911 in the other. He never actually got inside the house, but it was terrifying, especially since it was literally my first night of living on my own. Right, that's it, my plastic pirate fancy dress sword is now my first line of defense. Problem with the plastic pirate dress sword is that it requires an eye patch to really sell it. That's why I have a foam sword with a metal rod inside. Requires no props. I was maybe 11 or 12 and was home alone one winter day. The desktop computer I was using shared a wall with our unheated garage. The house was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. All of a sudden this boom erupted from the garage that shook the wall. It honestly sounded like a bomb went off. 20 minutes later, after hiding behind the couch and getting my heart rate down, I finally went to inspect. A 2-liter Sprite bottle had frozen and exploded off the shelf. We have an older home, and one day, one of the garage door springs broke. Not that uncommon it turns out, but new to me, since they are under tension. It sounded like a bomb went off in the garage. You're lucky you weren't in there when it broke. Those things'll cut you in half. No exaggeration. Yes. My friend's dad lost an eye to one, which also gave him a massive facial and scalp scar. Fuck. My husband was having a dude's weekend, and I was home alone with our kid. The downstairs neighbors were fighting, nothing new there, when all of a sudden I heard her scream, "Help me, please God, someone help me." So loud I knew she had run out the kitchen into the back stairwell. She was crying and screaming. Their baby was screaming. Then there were thumps and more yelling. I had already called 911, and while they were getting my information everything went silent down there. The baby suddenly stopped. Everything was quiet. I told them to hurry. The police arrived, and I had to let them in the building. So much for an anonymous report. And they pounded on the downstairs door for a while with no answer. They tried calling the landlord to get permission to break down the door, but one officer came up to ask me if there was another way in. I showed them the back stairwell and said they were unlikely to have bothered locking the kitchen door. They hadn't, and the officers got in. Nobody home. They came back and asked me again what I'd heard, and another officer hung back. The family was finally found in the basement. He said they'd all been down there doing laundry and hadn't heard the police knocking. Bullshit. People down the block could hear them threatening to break down the door. We'd drawn quite a crowd. She insisted everything was fine and she and the baby were safe and sent the police on their way. Nothing they can do if she insists she's safe. I couldn't sleep all night, and they were extra cold to us after that. A few months later I answered the door to 2 police officers responding to a report of DV. The downstairs neighbors claimed they'd heard screaming and thumps and then saw my husband jump in his car and speed away. I was home alone. Still in my nightgown. They could see lots of skin and no visible marks. And my husband had been out of the country on business for 3 days. They got in trouble for the false report and moved out later that month. I hope she eventually left him. I had neighbors like this. One day someone was having a bad fight and we called the cops, but we weren't sure which unit it was from. They knocked on a few units to find the right one and they actually arrested a guy. The next day our shared wall next door neighbors left a passive aggressive note taped to all the doors berating the people who made a false report and disturbed their night. I tried to apologize, but they never answered their door. I wrote a note and I could hear the woman complaining how I'd had the nerve to leave the note. Turns out she was so pissed because they were fighting all the time. Mostly her berating him. In the time we lived there we found out their first names, what kind of pets they had, when they went from engaged to married, because they stopped arguing about the upcoming wedding, and how his stepmom had ruined their now past wedding. Her job, what kind of invisible disability he had, and that he mostly sat there and took her mood swings, and she spent most of her time yelling about what a disappointment he was. Good times. Had a few entertaining fights through the wall. 2 of my favorites were hearing no I don't have a fucking hairdryer. I'm bald. And of course I suck dicks. I'm a stripper. Mine was that lettuce was for the rabbits. Bill. Unintelligible mumble from him. Yeah, Bill. I know you're sorry. And now I have to go to the fucking store and be late for fucking work because you had to be fucking selfish and eat the rabbit's lettuce. More unintelligible mumbles from him followed by slamming door or smashing object. My wife's favorite, I don't even go to that IHOP. And my favorite, I wouldn't do that. You know I wouldn't do that. I would threaten that. Girl across the street is nuts. Screams of fucking foxes, as in mating. No joke. Almost shat my pants the first time. Oh my god yeah. I thought I was hearing someone being murdered the first time I heard it. Growing up we had large old mirror with a thick wood frame leaning against the wall in our hallway. I was doing some homework in the kitchen, but got up to get something from the living room. The hallway is the connecting room between the two. So I passed through it, picked up whatever I needed in the living room, turned around and was on my way back. And that old mirror is broken on the floor. It's shattered. Pieces everywhere. As if it had exploded. It was completely fine when I passed it just seconds before. I didn't hear it break. I just kind of walked by it and headed out the kitchen door. Scared the shit out of me. Wood moves and twists with age and humidity. Glass doesn't. My guess is that there'd been pressure and tension building for ages until the glass gave way. Yes, you probably already figured this out and know. I'm no fun at parties. Edit. Thanks for the awards. And thanks especially to those who said they would party with me. I was at a friend's house watching her cats and suddenly someone stood on the balcony. Right when I walked down the hallway, I stopped dead and stood frozen for minutes. Heartbeat up in my throat. Turns out it was my reflection. Took me solid 10 minutes. Edit. Thanks for the award and great answers. I have a mirror in my living room that's on the wall opposite the windows to the back porch. I have now twice lost my shit thinking someone had gotten in my house while I've been out working in the backyard. Nope. That's sweaty. Scary person staring at me is just my own reflection. Look on the bright side. If you can scare yourself then surely no one is willing to break into your home just from pure intimidation factor alone. I was probably about 12. Newly allowed to be home alone for a couple hours over the summer. A man was walking through my fenced-in backyard. Walked right onto my deck to the back window. My dog was going nuts barking with her hair standing up. I had no way out of the house or to the phone without this man seeing me in the window. So I'm hiding behind the couch waiting for him to break in. When I see him exit my yard through the gate, I immediately call my mom almost in tears, and she said, "Oh, I forgot to tell you the gas meter guy was coming." Of course the gas meter is right next to the window my brother and I always used to break into our own house when we forgot our keys. My dog was the only baddest that day. Had a similar story. I was home alone in the summer as a kid and I hear people on our roof and trucks in the driveway. I call my mom from underneath her bed and whisper that there are men walking on the roof. My mom, "Oh yay, the roofers are coming today." I was 30 years old, just laying in bed waiting for my alarm to go off when suddenly I heard a ton of loud noises coming from the roof. I immediately thought what the fuck is happening, and then my landlord called to say that oh yeah, roofers would be there today. Thanks for the heads up, dipshit. That was a great way to start my day. I was babysitting a family I was unfamiliar with. My parents knew them and suggested me when they needed a babysitter, and as I liked having money, I accepted. The kids go to bed and I kill time as wonders before smartphones are a thing by reading, I think, maybe doing homework, but that seems unlikely. Anyways, I start to hear speaking from another room. Not just speaking, but this low, almost demonic voice speaking to another one. I'm not a religious sort, but when you realize that no, you're not just hearing things, there's definitely a voice, it's more than a little creepy. Not knowing what was going on, I slowly crept up to the doorway of the sitting room, then peered around the corner. Fucking Furbies. Talking to each other. At night. In the dark. Furbies suck. I was at a family friend's house one time, and they were doing a yard sale. My friend's younger brother had his Furby on the table, and I was like, why are you selling your Furby? He didn't say anything. He just smacked it, and the thing came to life with that low battery demonic voice. And I'm like, UHH, change the batteries? He then opens it up. No batteries. And the goddamn thing is babbling away. Pretty much the same shit happened to me. I woke up in the middle of the night to it talking. My mom took the batteries out the next night, it started talking again. And I knew there were no batteries, so I threw it against a wall. I grew up in the middle of nowhere. Or, you know, surrounded by forest. The sort of place where you wouldn't get a car unknown to you mistakenly driving into your driveway. Your closest neighbors being across the field from your house. That sort of thing. Our house had 3 floors, of which the first one's backside was underground, built on a hill. So there was a staircase around the house with a door leading outside just behind my second floor bedroom window, which was at the back of the house facing the forest. Nobody rarely used the door to enter the house, as you had to walk up the stairs and behind the house in order to do so. I loved staying up late on my computer and would spend countless nights playing games and chatting with mates until the early hours. I must have been around 12. It was in the middle of summer, so it was incredibly light outside regardless of the time. My parents were on holiday and 2 of my brothers were not at home. I was about to go to sleep, but did a little round around the massive house and noticed one of my brother's door was wide open. Only then I realized I was home all by myself, and of course took advantage of that rare occasion and browsed through his room. Mostly it was just super cool entering his room, as he'd often tell me to get lost. Anyway, I got tired and finally went to bed. I soon woke up to what I thought was a loud, slow, banging noise. Startled, I sat up in my bed and looked around. It was still in the middle of the night. I felt my entire body tense as I sat as still as possible, listening. Perhaps I just dreamt it all up. Then I heard it again, right outside my window, only it was getting louder and faster. I started panicking, remembering that I was all alone at home. Now I clearly heard someone moving outside. I gathered all of my courage and sneaked to the window, slowly getting closer to peek through the shutters. My hands were sweating and all I could hear was the sound of my heartbeat growing faster in my ears. As I carefully moved the shutters aside, I saw a tall, skinny and fully naked man stood there, outside my window, in the forest, behind our house, in the middle of fucking nowhere. I honestly don't even remember my exact reaction except for almost shitting myself. But only seconds later I heard the dude shouting, "Insert my name here. Open the fucking door right now. FFS. Open the fucking door. Are you deaf? Let me in right now." I recognized that voice. It was my brother. I quickly ran to the door and peeked through the window to make sure it indeed was him. Before opening it, my brother had apparently managed to sleepwalk and lock himself outside but naked, only to wake up somewhere in our garden. I guess he must have felt equally terrified when waking up that night, before realizing where he was or what was happening. It was pretty fucking hilarious the next day. For me at least. Hands down funniest story in this thread. If you are new to TattleTale TV, please subscribe. We have new videos every day. Stay tuned for more coming up next.